What if I told you the most powerful man in American history was not a president, not a general, not a politician, but a businessman, a man who controlled an industry bigger than governments, a man who built a system so strong, so so impossible to escape, that pieces of it still shape your life today. His name was John D. Rockefeller, and his rise to power is one of the most extraordinary stories the world has ever seen. In this documentary, we will uncover how a young boy born into poverty became America's first billionaire, and the architect of a system that still influences energy, money, business, and modern capitalism itself. We'll explore the hidden patterns behind his rise, how he built an empire out of oil, how he defeated every rival, and how his power became so great that even the US government tried and failed to stop him. This is the story of Rockefeller, the man who shaped America more than any president, and the most powerful businessman the world has ever known. John D. Rockefeller did not begin life with power. He was not born into wealth, privilege, or comfort. In fact, he came from the opposite direction. He was born in 1839 in a small wooden house in rural New York. His father, William Rockefeller, was a traveling salesman, a man with charm, stories, and many secrets. People called him Devil Bill. He sold fake medicines, disappeared for months, and lived a double life with multiple families. He taught young John one painful lesson: trust no one completely. Rockefeller's mother, Eliza, was the exact opposite: calm, religious, disciplined, and hardworking. She taught him another lesson: save your money, work hard, never waste. These two extremes shaped him. From his father, he learned strategy. From his mother, he learned discipline. And from poverty, he learned hunger. The first spark. Rockefeller was an ordinary student, not the smartest, not the fastest, but he had one rare talent. He understood numbers like a language. At age 16, he got his first job as an assistant bookkeeper. He earned just a few cents a day, but he studied every dollar that flowed through the company. Who paid the most? Which goods made the most profit? Where money moved and where it disappeared. He didn't know it yet, but these small lessons would one day create the world's biggest corporate empire. The first business by age 20, Rockefeller started his own company. He was young. He had no reputation. He had no wealthy backers, but he had two things: discipline and a mind built for business. He calculated every cost. He negotiated every deal. He saved every dollar. People thought he was strange, too quiet, too serious, too intense. They had no idea they were watching the early formation of the most powerful businessman in American history. The world changes oil arrives then. In 1859, something happened that would change Rockefeller's life forever. Oil was discovered in Pennsylvania. At first, people saw it as a messy liquid, dangerous, dirty, almost useless. But then, everything changed when scientists discovered that oil could be turned into kerosene, a clean, powerful fuel for lamps and lighting. This new discovery created a gold rush, a business race, an entire new industry. And Rockefeller was watching, quietly, carefully, thinking. He saw opportunity where others saw chaos, and he was about to make a move that would change the world. When oil was discovered, most people rushed in blindly. Men with shovels, broken machines, leaking barrels. Everyone wanted quick money. Everyone wanted oil. But Rockefeller saw something different. He didn't want the oil fields. He didn't want the drilling rights. He didn't want the rush. He wanted control. Not of the oil, but of the system around the oil. This is how he became the most powerful man in America. Let's break down the key steps. The patent Rockefeller used to build Standard Oil into a global empire. Step 1, he mastered the refining business. Everyone else chased oil in the ground. Rockefeller chased value. He realized oil drilling was risky, oil refining was stable. Transportation and sales were predictable. So he built refineries that turned crude oil into kerosene, which every household needed for light. While others gambled, Rockefeller built the foundation of a long-term empire. This is the first rule of power. Control the stable part of the industry, not the chaotic one. Step 2. He made oil cheaper, cleaner, safer. Rockefeller didn't become powerful by luck. He became powerful through efficiency. He cut waste. He lowered costs. He improved quality. He reinvested profits instead of spending them. His oil became cheaper, cleaner, safer, more reliable. People didn't buy Rockefeller's kerosene because they loved him. They bought it because it was simply better. And when your product becomes the best, your business becomes the biggest. Step 3. He used scale to crush rivals. As his refineries grew, something interesting happened. Every time Rockefeller expanded, his costs went down, but his rivals' costs stayed high. So he used scale as a weapon. He sold kerosene cheaper than competitors. He reinvested profits to lower costs even more. He forced weaker companies to sell, merge, or shut down competitors. Called him ruthless. History calls him strategic. This is when Standard Oil started taking over America. Step 4. He controlled transportation. Here is where Rockefeller became untouchable. Oil companies depended on trains to ship barrels. Rockefeller realized, if you control transportation, you control the entire industry. So he negotiated secret deals with railroads, discounted shipping rates, rebates, exclusive contracts. This destroyed smaller competitors. They could not ship oil cheaply enough to survive. Rockefeller wasn't just selling oil anymore. He was controlling the routes oil traveled on. This is the moment he became a true empire builder. Step 5. He formed the Standard Oil monopoly by the 1880s. He controlled 90% of U.S. oil refining. He controlled distribution networks. He controlled transportation routes. He controlled prices. He controlled supply chains. He controlled the market. Standard Oil became the most powerful corporation in American history. Not even the U.S. government had this much influence. Rockefeller had built something bigger than a company. He built a system no one could compete with, a system no one could escape, a system that shaped the entire modern world. Step 6. The government tried to stop him. When one man becomes too powerful, governments take notice. Reporters attacked Rockefeller. Rivals complained. Politicians demanded action. For years, nothing worked. Standard Oil was too big, too efficient, too connected, too deeply woven into the economy. Finally, in 1911, the U.S. Supreme Court ordered Standard Oil to break up. But what happened next surprised everyone. Step 7. Breaking his empire made him richer. Standard Oil was split into 34 companies. ExxonMobil, Chevron, Amoco, Conoco, and many others. But Rockefeller still owned shares in all of them. And after the breakup, those companies grew even faster. Rockefeller woke up the next morning not less wealthy, but far more wealthy. The breakup made him the richest man in American history. The system he created didn't collapse. It expanded. Rockefeller may have lived in the 1800s, but the system he built is still alive today. In fact, it quietly shapes the modern world in ways most people never notice. Even though Standard Oil was broken apart more than 100 years ago, Rockefeller's influence continues through big corporations, financial networks, philanthropy, and the energy systems that still run the global economy. Let's connect the past to the present and see how Rockefeller's blueprint still affects our lives. The companies born from Standard Oil still rule the energy world. When Standard Oil was broken into 34 companies, Rockefeller kept shares in all of them. And those companies didn't die. They evolved into some of the biggest firms today. For example, Standard Oil of New Jersey, Exxon; Standard Oil of New York, Mobil; Standard Oil of California, Chevron; Standard Oil of Indiana gives Amoco; Standard Oil of Ohio gives Ohio. Even today, ExxonMobil and Chevron are among the most powerful energy companies on Earth. Rockefeller's empire was broken, but the pieces still run the global oil industry. His blueprint survived. Rockefeller invented the modern corporation. Before Rockefeller, most businesses were small. Local stores, family businesses, simple operations. Rockefeller introduced vertical integration, corporate hierarchies, centralized management, strategic mergers, cost control systems. Large-scale production today Every major corporation, Apple, Amazon, Google, Tesla, uses the same structure Rockefeller created. He didn't just build a company, he built the template for the modern business world. Rockefeller popularized philanthropy as power. Most people think philanthropy is charity. Rockefeller saw it as something else, a tool to shape society. He created institutions, foundations, and research centers that influence education, influence healthcare, influence science, influence public policy schools. Universities, hospitals, and medical standards were shaped by the Rockefeller Foundation. He used philanthropy not to disappear, but to extend his influence far beyond business. Today, billionaires like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and even tech founders follow the same model. Rockefeller invented it. He changed energy, which changed the world before Rockefeller. People used whale oil candles, coal wood. Rockefeller replaced all of them with kerosene. Later, his companies pushed gasoline, fueling cars, trucks, planes, and the entire transportation age. Without Rockefeller, cars wouldn't spread as fast. Industrialization wouldn't accelerate. Global trade wouldn't expand. Modern cities wouldn't grow the same way. He didn't just change business. He changed civilization. Rockefeller's control model became the blueprint for big tech. Rockefeller used a simple strategy: dominate the essential infrastructure. Back then, it was oil and transportation. Today, the new Rockefellers dominate data, Google communication, e-commerce, Amazon Energy, Exxon, Chevron, entertainment, Disney, Netflix. Rockefeller taught the world that whoever controls the system controls everything inside it, and that pattern is repeating in the 21st century. Even modern wealth is measured against him, adjusted for inflation. Rockefeller remains one of the richest men in history. More powerful than today is Bionides, more influential than most politicians, and more impactful than any business leader before him. His empire started with oil, but it grew into the architecture of the modern American economy. When people talk about big business, monopolies, corporate giants, or economic power, they're talking about a world Rockefeller helped create. The world we live in today is built on his blueprint. As Rockefeller's empire grew, so did the fear surrounding it. By the late 1800s, John D. Rockefeller was no longer just a businessman. He was something far more powerful, a man whose influence seemed impossible to challenge. His company refined nearly all the oil in America. His pipelines carried the fuel. His distribution networks delivered it. His deals with railroads ensured that rivals couldn't compete. Standard Oil didn't just dominate an industry, it controlled it. And this is where the story becomes intense, because when one man becomes too powerful, the world begins to push back. The public turns against him. Newspapers began calling Rockefeller the Oil King, the most dangerous man in America, the man who owned everything. People feared rising prices, vanishing competitors, corporate control over daily life. The idea of a single corporation controlling the nation's most important fuel felt frightening. This pressure was the first crack in the empire. Rivals tried to fight back and failed. Small oil companies tried to resist Rockefeller. They formed alliances. They complained to politicians. They lowered their prices. But Rockefeller had something they didn't: lower costs, better transportation, smarter strategy, bigger scale, enormous profits. Every time a competitor fought him, Rockefeller simply bought them, crushed them, or outperformed them. This revealed something deeper. Rockefeller wasn't just winning. He was eliminating the idea of competition itself. Journalists launched a public attack in 1904. Journalist Ida Tarbell published a famous expose called The History of the Standard Oil Company. She exposed Rockefeller's secret deals with railroads, aggressive tactics, hidden acquisitions, attempts to control entire markets. The public reacted with shock. For the first time, Americans realized the scale of Rockefeller's empire. Tarbell's investigation became the fuel that turned public opinion against Standard Oil. This was the moment Rockefeller became a national enemy in the eyes of many. The U.S. government stepped in. No business in American history had ever grown big enough to challenge the government itself, but Standard Oil did. And finally, Washington decided to fight back. In 1906, the U.S. government filed a lawsuit under the brand new antitrust laws, declaring that Rockefeller's empire was a monopoly that needed to be broken. The United States versus John D. Rockefeller. It was the biggest corporate battle America had ever seen, the trial that shook the nation. The government argued. Standard Oil crushed competition, controlled transportation, manipulated prices, made secret deals, threatened market freedom, Rockefeller argued. He made oil cheaper. He improved safety. He created efficiency. He reduced waste. He built a national energy system. The courtroom became a war zone of ideas. Freedom versus control. Government versus corporation. Nation versus empire. This battle lasted years, and the entire country watched every moment. The judgment that changed American business forever in 1911. After years of investigation, the U.S. Supreme Court delivered its verdict. Standard Oil must be broken into pieces. 33 companies were created from the breakup: Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, Amoco, Conoco, and many others that still dominate global energy today. On paper, Rockefeller had lost. The empire he built was gone. But what happened next shocked everyone, because the breakup did not destroy Rockefeller. It made him even richer. When Standard Oil was broken apart in 1911, many believed it was the end of Rockefeller's power. But they were wrong, because what happened next became one of the greatest twists in the history of business and wealth. The breakup made Rockefeller even richer. When Standard Oil split into 33 companies, Rockefeller still owned shares in all of them. Within months, the share prices exploded, the new companies grew rapidly, the oil industry expanded globally. Rockefeller woke up one morning and discovered he was worth more money than any man in American history. The government had tried to weaken him, but accidentally made him stronger. This moment cemented Rockefeller's reputation as not just a businessman but a master of systems. The Rockefeller blueprint spread across the world. The rules Rockefeller created: competition strategy, corporate structure, consolidation, became the foundation of the modern economy. Today, the biggest companies in the world follow his model. Amazon, Google, Apple, Facebook, ExxonMobil, JP Morgan, Chevron, all of them use a version of Rockefeller's ideas. Control the supply chain, scale aggressively, dominate essential infrastructure, eliminate inefficiency, reinvest profits, expand until no one can compete. Rockefeller didn't just build Standard Oil. He built the DNA of modern capitalism. Philanthropy became his new weapon of influence. After the breakup, Rockefeller shifted from business to philanthropy. But for Rockefeller, philanthropy wasn't just charity, it was long-term influence. He funded universities, medical research, scientific labs, public health systems, educational reforms, global foundations. These institutions shaped the world for generations. Hospitals, schools, vaccines, modern medicine, many of these systems were strengthened by the Rockefeller Foundation. Some people see this as generosity, others see it as strategic influence. Either way, the impact is undeniable. His family became a silent power network long after Rockefeller's death. His family continued to hold influence in banking, politics, oil, philanthropy, global development think tanks, international organizations from Rockefeller Center in New York to major foundations, universities, and banks. His name quietly threads through the modern world. Even presidents, diplomats, and business leaders cross paths with institutions shaped by his legacy. His empire may have broken, but his influence never stopped. The Rockefeller pattern still shapes modern billionaires. Today's billionaires, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Warren Buffett, all follow pieces of the Rockefeller playbook. Dominate infrastructure, buy competitors, reinvest profits, scale, globally use philanthropy for influence, build systems people depend on. Rockefeller was not just the richest man of his time. He was the first to understand that controlling a system is more powerful than controlling a product. This is why many call him the architect of modern capitalism. The big question: what does his story mean for today? Rockefeller's rise teaches us three powerful truths. 1. Systems last longer than companies. Standard Oil died, but the system it created still lives. 2. Influence can survive collapse. Even government action couldn't stop Rockefeller's wealth. Modern corporate power follows the same cycle. Big tech today is repeating many parts of the Rockefeller strategy. His story is not just history. It's a warning, a lesson, and a roadmap for how power evolves. John D. Rockefeller did not set out to become the most powerful man in America. He did not start with wealth, influence, or advantage. He started with almost nothing. But through discipline, strategy, and an unshakable vision, he built an empire so large that it reshaped an entire country. He didn't just dominate oil. He didn't just build a company. He built a system of business, competition, and power that still affects the modern world more than a century later. Standard Oil may be gone, but the companies born from it ruled the global energy industry. The corporate structures he created became the foundation of modern capitalism, and the idea of philanthropy as influence still shapes global institutions today. Rockefeller proved something extraordinary. You don't need a throne to rule a nation. Sometimes, all you need is a system. Today, his legacy is everywhere. In the companies we use, the fuel that powers our lives, the institutions that guide society, and the strategies modern billionaires follow. Rockefeller's story is more than business history. It is the story of power, how it rises, how it spreads, and how it survives even after the empire falls. So here's the question I leave you with. If one man could reshape America with oil and discipline, who will reshape the world next? Thank you for watching. For more cinematic stories about money, power, and the patterns shaping our world, make sure you subscribe to Mindshift Economy. We are just getting started.